company called Kizo Performance that works with performers on unleashing their inner greatness and mindset, top mindset. So I got my master's in sports psychology in 2017, moved back to Canada, and now I'm a mental performance specialist and work with some awesome organizations and individuals. And I've worked in a variety of settings, doing both individual and group sessions, and coach development and speaking as well. And the name of the company again is Kizo. The website's on there, kizo.ca, and we have an Instagram and Facebook pages as well. So what I want to talk to you about is this model of human performance that I've come to understand through looking at science-backed models and through working with performers to see what actually makes sense in practice. So here it is. There's essentially three parts that we can train. So we can train our skills, which is what are my mental and physical skills that enable me to be the best version of myself? Which ones do I want to improve, and then how am I leveling them up? We have our values, which are very important, and this one is essentially around what are my core values, what are my top 3 values, what's my top value, why have I picked these, and what are my actions aligning with those values? So do I have integrity with how I'm acting on a daily basis? And we all have these values, whether we sit down and clarify them or not. And then we have our personality, which is who am I? Do I really get myself as a performer? Who am I as a human being? How do I respond to stress? Like, what's my stress response? And then what are some of my strengths and gaps? And the skills are a lot quicker to learn. The values are slower. These are slower to change. And then the personality is even slower. So in teams, it's really important for members of the team to know each other's personalities, right? To understand how each other functions, how each other responds under stress. Today, we're really going to be drilling into the skills. What are the mental skills? So, as a performer, you essentially have 5 things that you can train in terms of skills, okay? We have our sleep, and sleep is how much you sleep in, the quality of your sleep, bedtime routines, morning routines, what are the conditions of your room before you go to bed. Movement, speed mechanics, there's some great movement sessions. It's a technique of your lifts, it's your speed, it's your power, agility, everything related to fitness. We have nutrition. How am I feeding myself? What am I doing, before a game? Am I having a big meal, like half an hour before a game, and then not able to play? Carb loading, nutrient timing. When am I eating? When do I eat proteins? Nutrition and hydration as well. Recovery. How am I recovering after a tough training session? Do I hop into an ice bath or cold shower? Do I do some foam rolling or stretching? What about if I have a long week in my sport, coaching or playing? What do I do to actually slow down, take some of that off time, and recover my body and mind so that I'm ready to crush it again? And then there's the mindset piece. So if you train these 5 things, each of them gives you an edge, leveling each of those skills up. And they're all interconnected, They're all interconnected, and they all link up with mindset. So the quality of your sleep is going to dictate how you show up mentally the next day in terms of concentration, composure, confidence, your movement. If you're not moving a lot throughout the day, if you're sitting a lot and being sedentary, it's going to affect your mindset and your mental health. Nutrition. The food that we eat affects our mind. It affects our ability to focus. Refined sugars take a toll on our ability to focus. There's the gut-brain connection, which talks about how different foods affect our potential levels of anxiety and depression. So nutrition is very important. And then recovery. How we recover gives us more of that mental space and mental bandwidth to actually crush the next workout of the next day. And today we're really going to be dialing into mindset. There's 4 basic mental skills that I found. There's a couple of other ones as well, but these are really easy to remember. So the 4 C's. We have concentration, which is knowing how to focus and refocus. despite distractions and tough situations. Composure, stress management, knowing how to manage our arousal and anxiety and excitement so that it's not over the top and it's not too little. Confidence. What am I thinking to myself? What kind of thoughts are stuck on repeat? And then control. We're going to dive into what each of these are. There's a fifth one, which is that human connection, which is so important. And it's essentially the fabric of any successful team. How well are the people connecting? How's the relationship between the coaches and the athletes, the administration? Does that make sense? That's really, really important, that belonging and that communication. Okay, here we go. Control. So control is really about clarifying your actions. Now, what does that actually mean? The way we define control is being clear on what you can control in a given situation and putting in the effort to make that happen. And also realizing what we don't control and letting that part go. As a performer, you deliver when it counts. And if when it counts is really easy, your skills aren't put to the test, and you don't really have to think about what's within your control and what's not. But think about situations where you're under pressure. The game, the competition is going at full speed, or you're tired. Now, with those conditions, you still got to deliver, and there's a lot of things that are not within your control, and you got to do something about it. Pressure hits in those kind of situations, and pressure comes from a variety of sources. You know where pressure comes from. It hits when there's tightness, there's conflict on a team. And pressure is this factory that you see on the screen. It's a factory that creates these toxic thoughts and emotions. And these thoughts and emotions are like a web that gets put over our eyes. So it's a factory that creates these toxic thoughts and emotions. And these thoughts and emotions steal an important resource from us as performers. Yeah? And that resource is attention. And attention is our most valuable commodity. And learning to control it is a skill of top performers. What can I actually control in pressure moments? What is it that I can do, and what is it that I can't do? So here's a framework for you, okay? The C in the middle is the control, and that's a bullseye. That's what we want to aim for. And the things that we control are completely within our skin. It's within that 3-foot radius around us, within our skin, hands, feet. But there's also this ace, and we control the ace. And that's our attitude, concentration, and effort. Our attitude. How am I showing up in this moment? Concentration. How focused am I? And what do I want to do, and what can I do to lower any distractions while my coach is talking? While I have these thoughts ping-ponging inside of my mind. And then effort. How hard am I willing to try right now? How much effort am I willing to put in? We always have these at our disposal, the ACE. But now there's the next circle, and that's the area of influence. So that's the things that we can influence, but not really control. But our actions sort of like affect it. Teammates, coaches, family, and opponents. Throw in there pets, you throw in there a couple of other things. And then the uncontrollables, the weather. We don't control if it rains or snows. We don't really control the fact that COVID exists. What do we control with relation to that? We control how we show up in terms of sanitizing our hands, making sure to physically distance, wearing masks when indoors, and those sorts of things. We don't control outcomes and results. We really don't. And that's a really important distinction, because what is within our control is putting in the action to do the play properly, but if we do that, we're not always going to get the results that we want. So really, when tough situations happen, the control mental skill is, what am I stressing about? Is what I'm stressing about within my control? If it isn't, letting it go and rechanneling our attention to something else. One way to control the controllables is through this equation here. So this comes from the New Zealand All Blacks. And the All Blacks, I saw there's somebody who plays rugby here. So the New Zealand All Blacks are the most successful team in the world ever. Over 80% win rate. Crazy. Like in the history of the existence of the team. And so this equation comes from a book about them. And so performance might mean, think about what performance means to you. Is it a race against the clock? Is it doing a play properly? Is it lifting a certain amount of weight? What is performance to you? Capability is going to be physical and mental skills that make that performance more likely, that make success on that performance more likely or less likely. And then our behavior, so it's capability times behavior. Our behavior is, what am I doing? Yeah, what are the actions I'm taking that are either going to improve my capability or lower it? Now here's the trick. Here's where the controllables come in. There's two types of behavior. We have public behavior, which is, if you think about a team, an example of public behavior is any time the teammates are together. Okay? So it might be when they're on a bus on the way to a game, which may not be happening right now. Maybe when they're training, they're in a training session, they're in a gym session together. Yeah? They're playing Apex or League of Legends together online. Yeah? So anytime teammates are together and they can see each other, that's examples of public behavior, which absolutely affects capability. Like showing up to training is very important and putting in the effort in. But the more important one, and the difference maker, and the place where top pros get an edge, is this private behavior. And this is, what am I doing on my own to improve my capability? Well, nobody else can see me. No coaches, no parents, no teammates can see me. Michael Jordan is an example of really tapping into the private behavior. So he, even when he wasn't with his teammates, he'd go and he'd play pickup ball for hours, like 5-6 hours a day. He'd stay after practice, come before practice, and just shoot. And shoot from different positions on the court, even though he was tired. Yeah? But there's other examples of private behavior too, and it's the 5 that we talked about. How am I leveling up my sleep habits? Am I moving throughout the day? Am I doing my range of motion training in the morning? What am I eating? How am I fueling my body and how am I hydrating? Recovery. Am I doing that uncomfortable ice bath after a really tough leg day so that I can train in 2 days from now? And then mindset. What am I doing to train the mental skills? So, I don't know if there's like a chat function in there. Maybe I hear from a couple of you in here, but what are some ways that you can think about? What are some ways that you can improve on your own, literally tomorrow? And we're looking at that private behavior. Like, what can you do on your own? Nobody else. You're only dependent on yourself. What are some examples of that?
Myself, I'd say, like, for me, what works for me is just pre-planning my day. Like, when I'm alone, I just pre-planning what I have to do for the next day or even the next week, right? And then basically checking off those tasks, what I've completed throughout the day.
That's huge. Yeah. Goal setting is another mental skill. So putting it down on paper and then ticking it off, crossing it off, actually fires a signal in your brain, and the dopamine, which is a chemical in the brain, you cross it off, it feels really good. That's a really good skill. Yeah, that's that, and nobody sees that. You don't go around showing your list of to-dos and what you've completed that day, right? But it helps you because it levels up your capabilities.
Absolutely.
Yeah? What else?
For me, it would be sleep.
Sleep.
Yeah. I'm bad about keeping my phone near me and kind of destroying the sleep structure.
Yeah, the phone thing is really tough.
Yeah.
Right? Because it
leave it in
the morning and the night it kind of messes it up. And so something my wife and I started doing was charging our phones in our kitchen. And it was really tough in the beginning because you're like, oh, the first thing I usually do in the morning is roll over to the bedstand, grab the phone and go on the phone and just scroll for like 15 minutes. But now we have that separation and it charges in a different room. And so that's really, really important. Yeah? One more example. Private behavior.
You know, waking up and like kind of organizing yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Like you only gonna make your bed and just organize stuff like that around you.
Right. So that personal hygiene in terms of like cleaning the room, getting the bed set.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is big, and there's a reason why they do it in the military, and it is related to discipline. But getting that small win at the start of the day is so huge. It's really, really huge, and that is that private behavior. Nobody sees you making your bed, but you see it, and you know you've started off the day right, and it's part of the morning routine as well. The second mental skill is confidence. And confidence really is about choosing your words. We define confidence as a feeling of trust from believing your own abilities and skill set. So it's trust in yourself. And this fake it till you make it thing doesn't actually work. We can't pretend like we're really good at something. I can bench this. If I've never benched that weight, I won't be able to do it. So I have to put in the weight close to it. Oh yeah, I'll be able to score this shot. Nope. If I haven't put in the work before, I actually don't get to say that, and that's actually not going to make a huge difference. So the recipe for confidence is mental reps and physical reps. And it's really not so easy. The mental reps, what are those? Well, visualizing, it's that self-talk. How am I speaking to myself? Yeah? And it's essentially those two skills. The physical reps are any time I'm actually doing my sport. So am I putting in the quality physical reps so that when I go to training, I'm there, I'm present, but I'm also doing deliberate work on things that I want to improve improving the strengths and covering up the gaps. But it's also having been in those high pressure situations. Olympians going to the Olympics for the first time are actually quite nervous, and their confidence is quite shattered because they haven't been to the Olympic Village before. They haven't been in that situation with that pressure, the media, the other competitors. Like, it's pretty adrenaline filled. And so having been in that situation in the past really helps with confidence. Past success helps with confidence, and that's part of the physical reps. We have 60 to 80,000 thoughts a day, and most of these thoughts go on unnoticed. They're unconscious. About 4,000 to 5,000 are actually conscious thoughts that we can keep a track of. The trick is, our conscious ones can make unconscious ones grow. And so paying attention to what kind of thoughts are stuck on repeat in our mind is really important. And also planting some of those thoughts that we want to have more of. And thoughts are like seeds, because we really don't know what this seed is going to sprout into, and it might sprout into a weed, or it might end up being a beautiful flower. So paying attention to what our thoughts are, especially the ones stuck on repeat. So ask yourself, when you notice you have a thought that's stuck on repeat, is this thought true 100% of the time? Write these thoughts down. Like, this is a legit exercise that I do with my clients. And then, when some of these tough things that you say to yourself, when you get them down and when you realize, well, they're not actually true 100% of the time, cross them off. Cross them off the list. Keep going down the list. Those nasty thoughts. And then what you want to do instead is insert some of those thoughts of when I'm performing at my best, when I'm playing at my best, when I'm training at my best. when I'm the best version of myself as a coach, what am I doing? Emotionally, physically, mentally? Where am I looking? What am I thinking or not thinking about? And this exercise, there was a hockey player that I worked with about last year, and we had these weekly sessions, and very quickly I realized that the actual challenge for him was not performing as well as he did in practice. He'd go to competition and he would just shut down. So it was a confidence thing, right? So we looked at, the first place we started was taking this inventory of language. And him writing down some of the tougher things he says to himself. What are things you say to yourself on the ice when you mess up? What are thoughts you have that are pretty, that don't help you out? So we noticed he said a lot of, I can't do this. My coach is making me, I should do this, I gotta do this, I have to do this. So those kind of thoughts. And those thoughts are disempowering. What they were doing is taking the autonomy and the power away from him. When in fact, what we ended up replacing those thoughts with was, I get to do this. I choose to do this. Right? I want to do this. And that, even that mind shift made a big difference. Removing can't from his vocabulary. Yeah? Just completely removing it. Yes, there's some things that he couldn't do. But removing it from the vocabulary and focusing on that small next step that he could do made a big difference. So then, when he went back on the ice a couple of weeks later, after creating this list of when I'm at my best, I'm boom, boom, boom. He had this list of 10 phrases, and he would put it down on a cue card, and he kept repeating them to himself 2 to 3 times a day. He was brushing his teeth. He had one on the bedstand, beside his bed, inside of his phone. And what he noticed, like a month later, things just sort of clicked, and he started performing like these thoughts here. But what he was also doing is, he was putting in the physical reps. He was putting in that sort of work. So, think about that. How do you show up when you're at your best? Yeah? Are you loose, dialed in, communicating? Are you determined? Yeah? What does that look like for you? And you'll clarify that, and then you'll know what you, the kind of phrasing, the kind of thoughts you want to have to yourself. Composure. Composure is about calibrating your arousal. Yeah? They say that when they ask people, this is consistently, they ask people, what's your biggest fear in the world? And they give people a list, or they let people say, write it in. The number one thing is always public speaking. And it's always rated above death. If people are more scared of stepping on a stage, then they're afraid of death. So composure fits into that. It's about learning the skills to be calm and in control, managing our emotions despite this adversity and challenge and pressure. And you can see how some of these mental skills overlap. When you work on one, you're going to end up building another one. Our composure works on a continuum like this. And on the bottom is heart rate. Okay? And we have these 3 zones: blue, green, and red. The blue zone, and again, this depends on the sport that you're playing. The green zone is the ideal heart rate and the ideal activation mentally. And so it might be anywhere from 100 to 150. Some sports it might be lower, depending, like golf, it might be lower, whatnot. When an athlete is in the blue zone, they are too calm, right? This is not a good chill zone. This is like, I'm going to underperform if I'm in this zone. Too calm, making decisions too slowly, yeah? Too loose. Red zone, angry, agitated, making rash decisions, results-oriented. Green zone, loose, dialed in, composed, confident, focused on the process, not overcompensating. Overcompensating would be in the red. So knowing where you are and doing this like emotional temperature check before competition starts, before training starts, and kind of like throughout training, is really important because then we can actually change these. And what we want to do is, there we go. We want to, if we find ourselves in the blue zone, we want to bring it up to the green. So some ways that we can do that are high performance imagery, right? Picturing some of those scenarios that happen on the field, that visualizing. Some athletes like to use music. You'll see that on TV, like they have the headphones on and they're listening to their pump up jams and getting in the zone that way. Or it might mean warming up even more. Yeah, warming up even more so that you're starting off your competition at a good intensity. If an athlete finds themselves in the red, a really good tool, again, is music, if it's before competition, but listening to different type of music than you would if you were in the blue. Listening to music that's going to chill you out more, to mellow you out a little bit more. Yeah? Breathing. Breathing it's a science-backed, evidence-based way to calm down the heart rate. There's a nerve called the vagus nerve, and it's actually hooked up to the diaphragm, and it's hooked up to the heart. The reason breathing actually works, especially slower breathing, is because with that connection, if we're doing belly breathing, the heart rate gets a signal of I'm good, I'm safe, and the body goes more towards the green. Yeah? There are personal differences when it comes to those levels, and so the same strategies don't work for everybody. And it's about finding the heart rate zone that works for you when you're competing, when you're training. The green zone is best for example, if you played a sport that has points, if you're playing basketball, like during the points, like when you're playing during competition, but there's then again, getting closer to the blue and those breaks of play, calming down a little bit more and then knowing how to amp it up again. If it's take a sport like tennis, for example, between the points, you want to have a lower heart rate. If you're doing rugby, there is breakages in play where you want to lower that heart rate to closer to recovery. Now here's a couple of relaxation strategies that are really good, and we won't have time to do any of those today, but I'm going to give you a couple of app suggestions that most of them are free, so that you can practice them on your own. So there's something called 4-7-8 breathing. And in this type of breathing, you want to inhale through your nose for 4 seconds, hold for 7 seconds, and exhale for 8 seconds, and then breathe in again. And exhaling is done through the mouth. The stomach is the only thing that should move. So when athletes are first learning these types of breathing, usually have them lie on the floor, put something on their stomach so they can see it move, like a cleat or a glove or a bat, whatever. There's progressive muscle relaxation. Michael Phelps was really huge on this. And this is something his mom did with him from the time he was a teen, because he had trouble falling asleep at night. And so he started doing it. And the gist of it is, you go throughout your body and you tense and relax different parts of your body, like different muscles. And then you'll learn the difference between tension and relaxation, so that when you're in competition, you can learn how that feels. And then when you feel the tension, you can do some of those things and actually get your body to relax. So it's a bit of an awareness thing as well. There's 2-to-1 breathing, which is you exhale. Your exhale is twice as long as your inhale. And this is pretty personal. Like for some people, it's a 5-second inhale, 10-second exhale. For some people, it's different. And then finally, this one's my favorite. It's called box breathing. And box breathing actually comes from the world of Navy SEALs. Before the US Navy SEALs go into a mission, they use this technique of box breathing. And it's essentially 4-second inhale, 4 seconds hold, exhale for 4, hold for 4. And it's all done through the nose. And again, using the belly. And the reason it's effective, again, is because we have that rhythm. It's that consistent rhythm. We're inhaling and exhaling on cue, on the rhythm. We're holding the breath, which gets some relaxation to happen in the body. And so whenever you're breathing, you really want to breathe like babies and snipers. And what I mean by that is if you watch babies breathe, they only breathe with their tummy. And we, as we get older, we have a tendency to breathe with our shoulders and to expand the chest. So focusing only on the stomach and using belly breathing. There's a ton of apps you can use to train. Like guided imagery, which is like you're picturing a relaxing beach or forest or whatever. There's deep breathing, progressive muscle relaxation, and some of those, if you type Johns Hopkins University and breathing, you'll come up with like 3 or 4 different videos, and they're really good. I like them a lot. And there's really good apps like Headspace, Calm, Insight Timer, Oak, Breath Air, Mind Shift, Sam. There's the Wim Hof app. You have to pay for that one or sign up for that one or something. There's one called Breathing. Like there's really a ton. There's really a ton of apps that you can use. But eventually what you want to go to is not needing an app. You want to go to like knowing what the timing is and using that guided breathing as the foundations to build your breathing technique, and then really being able to do it on the go. Like if you're driving and a driver kind of pisses you off, knowing how to take a breath without closing your eyes and calm down the body so that you don't do something that you don't want to do. So that's kind of what we want to go towards. Good times to sharpen your breathing muscle are before bed, especially if you're having trouble falling asleep and there's a lot of thoughts racing around in your mind. Before practices, so making it a habit. This one baseball player that I worked with, he was 12 years old, and he loves breathing, and so he got into the habit of, as his dad's driving him to practice, he does breathing in the car for like 2-3 minutes. Just like to clear the day, let go of like school, any fights with friends or whatever, homework, and just focus in on breathing and then transition to the training. And he's noticed really good results with that. Before competition, before school tests or job interviews or stressful situations at work, and then during the day, when you notice that you're feeling more anxious, more like amped up, antsy, jittery, kind of in that red zone that we talked about, you want to use that breathing. Any questions before I move on to concentration? Sweet. There'll be time for questions in the end. So concentration is really about channeling your attention. Channeling your attention. And concentration is the focus. It's how dialed in am I, and how am I managing distractions when my focus is gone. My tool for you with this is the focus plan. And I want you to screenshot this or take a picture of this. So here's what the focus plan is. Give you a sec to screenshot it, write it down, take a picture of it. If I get distracted during the game, and you can replace the game with whatever performance is to you, I'm going to blank plus blank. Now, what do we put in the blanks? Here's a couple of examples, and then I'm going to show you some examples of what you can put in the blanks. So it might be squeezing, I might squeeze my fist and say focus under my breath, or think focus in my mind. That might be my refocusing strategy. I might feel the bat if I'm a baseball player, yeah, if I'm about to bat, or I might feel the glove if I'm a hitter, if I'm a pitcher, and do 2 deep breaths. Yeah, so those are examples. But here's some physical skills you can put in the first blank. Physical skills. It might be a body thing. So a body thing would be I squeeze my fist. Yeah? Go like that, squeeze, and then release after a couple of seconds. It might be I slap my thigh, just kind of to get myself out of my head. It might be curling my toes, which is something nobody can see you do. Yeah? Curling your toes and your shoes kind of gets us out of our head and into our body, which is where we want to perform. In terms of equipment, if there's a moment to tie my shoelaces, might be doing that to reset. Oh, can't always do that. Adjusting helmet. Yeah? Some athletes I work with have they like to get a rubber band on put on their wrist and kind of give themselves a little pull on the rubber band, kind of sting themselves a little bit. And then might be feeling the bat or the ball, or toweling off if you do a sport that has breakages in play like squash and tennis. And then attention. might be looking at the ball, wherever it is. Like really, like eyes wide, looking at the ball, looking at the seams of the ball, looking at the stitching on the ball. Might be looking at the bat. Literally like tuning into the bat, tuning into the ball, tuning into my jersey. Yeah? Looking at a specific part of the jersey without losing focus of the bigger picture. Or it might be looking at my opponent and somebody I'm marking. The mindset skills that go in the second blank of the focus plan, there's a couple of different categories. So the Minnesota Vikings have this, they use the strategy of flush it. So flush it is imagining a toilet, and anytime like tough, negative, irrelevant thoughts really come to mind, picturing yourself flushing those thoughts away. And what you'll sometimes see the players do during games is they do this little thing with their finger, and that's their action of like, I'm flushing this, I'm clearing this from my mind. That's a really powerful strategy because it's using visualizing and a physical thing as well. Self-talk, really big again, really big for confidence. So it might be having a word or a phrase that you say to yourself. Focus, loose, fight, next play. Yeah? I had an athlete who came up, like when I asked him, what does top performance look like for you? He said, breathe, loose, trust. I want to breathe when I'm in those moments of pressure. I want to be loose, and I want to trust myself and my skill sets and my abilities. BLT, right? Easy to remember. Imagine. So you might imagine a calm place, if there's a moment. It might be an animal. This is pretty common with athletes, using high performance imagery to think about themselves as if they were an animal. I was working with a soccer player, and before, she had some of these challenges around intensity and not maintaining intensity in her game. So her, the focus would kind of go away and the intensity would come down. And so the strategy that clicked with her from this list was imagining an animal. Picturing that she was a lioness. And for her, that made her feel powerful. You could see a change in body language, facial expression, and demeanor on the field. Or it might mean, if you're using your visualizing, it might be imagining the next play. Right? Like leaving the past in the past, what do I want to do next? What do I want to do this play right now? What's the opposition going to do? How am I going to respond to that? Yeah? So that's a focus thing as well. Or breathing, which we've talked about. Maybe a box breath, might be 2 deep breaths or 1 deep breath.